I hear you have a book coming out, The Leader's Guide to Unconscious Bias. Somehow you managed to find time to co-author a book. And given the current climate that we are in, can you share a couple tips from the book?
It's important here for me to say a couple of things before I give you a couple of thoughts from the book. And that is, where we are at this moment in time, systemic racial injustice and social injustice is embedded in so many facets of who we are as a country, right? When you look at our criminal justice system, when you look at healthcare or education, we are a country in crisis, because the reality is here that unless you're in the less than 2% of the population who are Native American, you come from immigrants, okay? So what truly makes the United States of America an incredible place to be, the land where hope lives, the land where you can become whomever and whatever you want, and it is not dictated by your past. It is because it is built on the diversity of people who have come from all over the world, and that is our special sauce and our incredible magic, okay? Now, what the point of time we're in right now is, it's one that is, quite frankly, it's tragic and it's intolerable. Black Lives Matter, right? We see the data, we see the facts, we see what is happening out there to our Black colleagues, and it is fundamentally unacceptable, right? It is unacceptable to have to be concerned for your life simply because of the color of your skin, all right? And we are in a crisis. And every single one of us, no matter who we are, no matter what our ethnicity is, our religion, whatever, we own ensuring that all of us belong, okay? And if you were to kind of, recognize me as a leader in diversity and inclusion, I will tell you this: even my understanding and my obligation, my duty to serve, as a human on this earth, I don't even like stopping at diversity and inclusion, right? We've all heard of the diversity and inclusion. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. I actually don't like that anymore. You know why? Inclusion implies that somebody chooses to include someone else, right? So this is about belonging, right? Belonging is, we all bring our unique dance to the table, and we each teach each other our own dances, right? So that we learn each other's dance. That's what we're after here. So it is not just simply about diversity. It's not just simply about inclusion. What we're talking about is belonging, all right? And every member of this society, every member of the human race belongs as part of the human race, right? Right? And so that's a little bit of my preach, I guess, if you will. So, but it helps explain why I co-authored this book. I believe that the root of so many of our issues as a society, as a humanity, stems from unconscious bias, all right? I actually believe that 95% of what's happening out there is happening not intentionally, not because people are wanting to be malicious, not because people are wanting to be racist, not because people are wanting to be chauvinists. By the way, yes, there are people who are, in fact, all that, all right? But it is truly not the majority of what we might encounter in our daily lives. And so until we can talk about bias, and until we can identify and reframe that bias and surface that bias, we will never get past it, all right? So a couple of takeaways then from the book. And the book is really intended to be, if you notice it, it's the leader's guide. And it is all about building high-performing teams. And Anne's point of view is, how can you possibly build high-performing teams if you don't ensure and build a culture where everybody truly feels like they belong, and they can bring their best selves to work, and they can contribute in ways that are fundamentally different and beautiful than all the other members of the team, right? That's how innovation happens, right? That's how change and transformation happens, right? And that's how cultures are developed. So I think one of the most foundational things in the book is that it will take you through a bit of a journey in the upfront to realize that every person has bias. It's totally normal. Okay. And bias is not just simply about race. It is not just simply about gender. All right. We have biases about everything. I'll give you a silly one, right? But it's a real one. Growing up, we only ate eggs for breakfast. So I assumed that eggs were only supposed to be eaten for breakfast. Then I get to college, right? And I realized that they have these things called 7 by 24 like diners. And what are you jonesing for? When it's 2 a.m. and you've been studying or you've been out, hanging out with your friends, having a couple beers. You're like, an omelet sounds really good, right? And so eggs are not just for breakfast, right? But we all grow up with biases, and those biases are shaped by our upbringing, our parents, where we grew up, the media we surround ourselves with, the people we surround ourselves with, okay? And biases are normal, right? It is our way of staying organized and not going through the world with chaos. But some of those biases are harmless, like the egg one. Some of them are extremely harmful, right? And this is why a dedicated focus on women leaders is so important. This is why a dedicated focus on Black Lives Matter is so important. This is why a dedicated focus on LGBTQIA community is so important, right? Because certain communities are more marginalized than others, all right? Why is it that women represent half the workforce or represent over half the college degrees, over half the graduate degrees in this country, but are disproportionate in leadership roles, right? I think I think we're up to maybe 38 women CEOs of Fortune 500 firms, 38 out of 500, and that's the highest it's ever been. Okay, we don't have time to wait. All right, we don't have time to wait, and that's why programs like this are so critical. All right, and so what the book does is it helps kind of bring forth this idea of bias, this idea of unconscious bias. It helps give some tools on how to help reframe that bias, as well as kind of takes you into, as a leader, some things that you can do to create connection with others and how to collaborate, and then really how to apply it in the work environment so that you can build and lead high performing teams, right? And so that's a little bit about the book. I'd be certainly honored if you would consider ordering a copy and sharing it. And that's a little bit about unconscious bias.